Okay, I want to talk about Scottish independence. I think it's a big subject right now. I almost made this video a few months ago, and then I just never got round to it. So I want to bring up some of these things now. Of course, it's getting more and more growing immediacy to all of this because the deadline is approaching. I'm not Scottish. I don't have the same vested interest in this. It won't impact on me as much as it would either way. If I was Scottish, but it's still going to impact on me. It'll impact on everybody within the United Kingdom. For those of you that don't live in the UK, I ought to perhaps explain what's going on for the benefit of those that aren't aware of what's going on. Or for those that live in the UK, I don't know, but you live in a cave, or all you ever watch is fucking Britain's Got Talent, which shouldn't actually be called Britain's Got Talent. It ought to be called The World's Got Talent, because it doesn't matter where you come from, you can appear on that show, as long as you can afford to get to Britain for the... Maybe it ought to be called... people who can afford to get to an audition in Britain's Got Talent or something like that. So all you ever watch is Britain's Got Talent and fucking Jeremy Kyle, then you might not be aware of what is going on, which is that in September, it's something, is it the 18th or the 20th? 18th, I think, of September this year, the people of Scotland, the Scots, will get to vote on independence, on whether they wish to withdraw themselves from the rest of the United Kingdom, from Wales, England, Northern Ireland, and become a separate sovereign state. That is what is at stake here. First point of several that I want to make is that I absolutely accept that it is the Scottish people, and just the Scottish people, who get to decide this. There have been a number of people, particularly it would seem in England, who have said, well, we all have a vested, we're all part of the United Kingdom, we should all get to decide. Let me draw an analogy to marriage here, an analogy that I'll probably refer back to a few times during this video, because it seems quite pertinent. It seems a good analogy. If your partner wants to divorce you within a marriage, and in many ways this is very much like a divorce, you have some kind of agreement with obligation, some kind of binding commitment, and you're choosing to end it. If your partner decides that they want to split from you, you can't outvote them or vote against them and say, well, I've split the vote, I've decided we stay together. No, in a marriage, either partner can decide to leave, and that is something that you can take autonomously. And so it is here. If Scotland votes and the people of Scotland vote for independence, then that is fine. It only takes the people of Scotland to vote for that. If the people of England voted for independence from Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, then it would just take the people of England. If the people of England, Wales and Northern Ireland were given a referendum and they were to decide that they wanted to separate from the people of Scotland, then again, that should be okay. And it wouldn't be for the people of Scotland to vote against that. That would just be hard shit. And so it is in this instance. This vote is of the people of Scotland here. And the people of Scotland, it's right and proper that they get to decide if they want to have that vote. Okay, the next point that has to be made is that for the people of Scotland, this is not a referendum on the SNP. It's not a referendum on Alex Salmond. And I don't want to really get involved or embroiled in that, other than to say that Alex Salmond tends to leave me somewhat underwhelmed. The reason being that he plays this kind of big fish, small fish game, which is he likes to appear presidential, authoritative, tell things as they are, how he sees them being. He likes to make demands following independence. These are the things that's going to happen. He likes to set it all out, and I have no problems with that. No truck with Alex Salmond for that, but that's his big fish role. But then he plays the small fish. Then when the leaders of the largest political parties within the United Kingdom have their say and they disagree with them, then he starts saying, oh, well, this is Westminster politicians bullying us all. They're trying to bully the people of Scotland. No, Alex, what they're doing is the same fucking thing that you're doing, which is outlining their position. They're using the same bluster that you're using, and that is no more bullying than it's bullying when you do it. You don't get to do it just because you've got bushier fucking eyebrows than everybody else. One of the issues that this cropped up with was the issue of maintaining a single currency. In the event of a yes vote, in the event of Scotland becoming a separate sovereign nation, Alex Salmond's position, the SNP's position, is they wish to maintain the pound. It didn't used to be. They wanted to be in the euro. They've decided that's not in the interests of Scotland. Now, bear in mind that there are two sides here. There are the interests of Scotland and the interests of the 55 million people that you are leaving behind, not just the 5 million people of Scotland. But Alex Salmond and the SNP seem to have decided now that they want to keep the pound because that is what is in the interest of the people of Scotland. And I can understand it's the Scottish National Party, for fuck's sake, they're going to do what's in the interest of the people of Scotland. But this whole issue, to me, let's go back to the marriage analogy now, which I brought up in their favour earlier on. But it doesn't really work in their favour now. Let's go back to my wife. If my wife chose to divorce me, it's not within my power to say no, you can't. But if she chose to divorce me and then she says, well, I'm choosing to divorce you, Jim, but I've decided it would be in my interest if we keep our finances together, we're going to keep a joint bank account. Well, no, I'm sorry, you can't unilaterally decide that. Two people, it takes two to tango in this case, and unless I'm willing to do that, then it's just hard shit. You know, you want your independence as an individual, so you'll have to have your total financial independence. And it's the same thing here, I would suggest, unless the people in the residual countries from the Union and the people of Scotland, unless both sides are committed and happy with the idea of jointly maintaining the same currency, then it cannot happen. And you've just got to accept that as one of the things that you're going to have to deal with as a result of claiming independence. And then we get onto this idea, this threat that's been made. Well, if you don't allow us to keep that currency, we will renege on the debt. You're keeping the currency, so you keep all the debt that's tied with it. You know, that's a little bit like me and my wife. We're going to buy a car each. We're both going to have a car. We're both going to buy a car and we're going to put it on the current account. And then when she leaves me, she says, well, you keep the current account. You can pay the debt for both the fucking cars. It's not ethical, that. It's not moral. The money that is owed, the money that the United Kingdom owes, the debt that we have, has been spent to the betterment, not just maybe some people like Alex Salmond think that the people of Scotland haven't benefited from that it's just the people of England, of Northern Ireland and Wales. They've already benefited from that money. The people of Scotland haven't benefited from it. Well, that's not the case. That money has been borrowed for the betterment of the entire United Kingdom, and it doesn't seem ethical to even suggest walking away from your proportion of that debt. Sure, there is a debate to be had as to how you calculate that proportion, but to suggest that, well, unless we can maintain a common currency, unless we can maintain the same currency, then, well, you're just going to be responsible for all the debt that's been accrued, I don't think that is an ethical or a reasonable position to maintain. Okay, look, two more things to go through, and then if you're lucky, if you listen properly, I might just consider letting you go. First one, and this is one that really gets me, this is one that really winds me up, which is this idea that the government, the Westminster government, isn't always representative of the people of Scotland, as if there's something sinister, something wrong going on here, and that's a reason for independence. Look, Scotland is an enclave of 5 million people in a larger United Kingdom of 60 million people. It votes overwhelmingly Labour. For the past 3 or 4 years, we have had a Conservative government, and I appreciate that means that the government of the whole United Kingdom isn't the government that the vast majority of those particular 5 million people voted for. I've got news for you. You can draw rings round other groups of 5 million people in the United Kingdom that overwhelmingly vote Conservative. And for the 13 years preceding this government. They had a Labour government that they didn't vote for, but at no time did I hear the people of Surrey, for example, and I've got no particular allegiance to the people of Surrey. I don't live in southern England, I live in northern England, and I've voted for Labour governments more than I've voted for Conservative governments. I'm politically central. I've voted both ways, by the way. But at no point have I heard the people of Surrey, who overwhelmingly vote Conservative, ever say how unfair, manifestly unfair it is that they have these Labour governments and that they demand independence. They just accept that there are 60 million people, and that sometimes that when you've got an area of the country that's politically shifted slightly to one wing of politics or the other, that the government of the overarching the United Kingdom isn't going to represent them at that moment in time. That's the kind of way it works. If you're just going to have Scottish independence because the government of the day doesn't happen to represent the people of Scotland, so then Scotland gets independence, and then the people of Wales say, well, do you know what, the government doesn't always represent us, so we better go for independence. And then the people of Northern Ireland say, well, it never fucking represents us, because by and large we have totally different, distinct parties anyway, so we're going to vote for independence. And then in England, right, we can take England and divide it. We can draw little circles around groups of 5 million people, Scotland-sized population portions, and I bet you won't find one fucking group that is represented in each occasion by the government of the day. You'll find red groups and you'll find blue groups. And is anybody surprised by that? So how when it applies to Scotland does it suddenly become this big issue that this particular group of 5 million people feel they have to be represented by the Westminster government all the time? I could understand it if the people of Scotland always voted overwhelmingly for a political party that was never ever in power, then I could understand it. Then I'd understand the traction of that argument. But given that between 1997 and 2000 you were getting the government that you were overwhelmingly voting for, I don't really see what argument that you can have there. Okay, so this brings me on to the last point, and whilst I welcome comments on any section of the video, this is the bit that I'm most interested. Any Scots that watch this video on how they feel, whether they feel I'm grossly misportraying this, or whether they feel it applies to their views in part or in whole, or whether they see this as a kind of dichotomy in a way and see some friction between these two views that I'm going to talk about now, or whether they see that applying to some other Scots people but not necessarily to them. Right, these are two factors that I want to talk about. The first is that this kind of drive for independence seems to be tied up in some people with a kind of distaste or a kind of dislike, perhaps, for some other people within the United Kingdom, and it doesn't seem to be the people of Wales. I think if it was just the people of Wales, most people in Scotland would be more than happy to remain allied to. The people of Northern Ireland, it doesn't seem to apply to them. It always seems to be focused on the people of England. It's Scotland versus England. It's independence from England that's important, not from Wales or Northern Ireland. And as somebody who lives in the north of England, I always feel as if those shells are going over my head. That the distaste, that the friction is between the Scots and the people in the south of England. It's the people in the south of England that they really don't like. Those that don't like, I'm obviously not talking about all, I'm talking about those it's relevant to. It's the people in the south of England, the Tory heartlands, that they don't like, not the people in the north. So that's factor one. 2011, a paper, I think it was the Telegraph, the Daily Telegraph, conducted some research, asked over 1,000 Scots a question, and then they've done the same thing again last year and asked them if you would be £500 better off following Scottish independence. If you knew you'd be £500 better off, would you vote for independence? If you'd be £500 worse off, would you vote for independence? Now, the 2011 figures were more extreme, but let me just give you the 2013 figures, since they're the more recent ones. 52% said they'd vote for independence if they thought they'd be £500 better off. Only 15% would vote for independence if they thought they'd be £500 worse off. I hope I've made that understandable there. So what that means is 37% of those surveyed, that was enough. £500 either way was enough. Which I find personally, I'm just giving a personal opinion, I find that a little bit sad. The Union of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland means more to me than just 500, being £500 better off. Clearly for some people it doesn't, and those figures might be the same if you'd ask people in Wales, Northern Ireland or England. I don't know, but they haven't been asked, so I can't comment on that. But so for a lot of people, for 37% of the people, the financial aspect of it is so significant that it trumps the other aspects, it would seem. Even for quite a relatively small sum, £500 over an entire year either way. So here's the thing, this is the bit that I can't get my head around. Both the politicians on both sides understand that this financial argument is important, and so are making the cases as to whether Scotland will be better off or worse off out of the Union with Northern Ireland, England and Wales, and they're making that case, and it keeps being brought up by Alex Salmond and his cohorts there at the SNP, that the GDP and the GVA of the Scottish people, the average Scottish person, is greater than the average for the UK as a whole. That's true. But if you break it down into regions, the bits that are dragging the United Kingdom down are primarily Wales, Northern Ireland and the northeast of England. The south of England is actually richer per head of the population in terms of GDP, GVA than is Scotland. So this is the bit that I can't understand. If it's about the money, if you're one of those 37% who the money trumps everything else, then the people that you really want to sack off should surely be the Welsh and the Northern Irish and the people from northeast of England and from Yorkshire and Humberside, where I'm from, because we're the people that's dragging everybody else down. If only that you could just set sail with just yourselves and the people from the south of England, especially from London, where the GDP is far higher than anywhere else, then you would be quids in. Then your overwhelming criteria would have been satisfied. Those two things just don't seem to sit together as factors, and I'd be interested to know what people think. From my perspective, as I said at the beginning of this video, the people of Scotland will decide this based on whatever factors as individuals they want to base it on. We will all have to live by the results of that, the Scottish people more than anybody else. I wish them well in whatever they decide. It would be nice, from my perspective, if the vote is very close, only a few percent either way, if the rest of the people of the United Kingdom, if they got a vote on whether they still wished Scotland to remain with them. That would be nice, in the same way as if your wife or husband goes away and says, do you know what, I need a couple of weeks to think about whether I want this marriage to continue. If they come back and they say, yeah, I'm kind of in two minds, but I'm prepared to give you another go, that's a point where you might self-reflect, or want the chance to self-reflect on whether you want to keep giving it a go. Personally, I hope the people of Scotland overwhelmingly vote to remain part of the Union. I really wouldn't want to see the Union split, but we'll see what happens. Thank you for watching this video. It's gone on for a little bit longer than I'd hoped, and bye for now.